What's up, everybody? Jay Speck, the host here, and I am so honored and privileged to share with you a very special episode, very special interview with a man who really helped shape the entire sport, who helped lay down the groundwork for everything we love and care about. Some of you guys know my story. You know that I'm a day one fan of the UFC, a title I've held for 31 years, and the rarity that I'm the under 40 fan at that. And my days are numbered. And in my quest to make sure that the Pioneer era never goes forgotten and people learn, I am doing my best to try to get a hold of some of the founding members of our sport. Now, we have somebody, not just anybody, a big old somebody. Dan the Beast Severn is joining us. Enjoy.
I fly by my seat of my pants pretty well. You'll find that out as we go through this interview, how much more. I'm sorry that it sounds like a little bit of an echo probably in here, but I'm actually inside my training facility. Here, give you a quick little 360 of my surroundings. What you see in here is basically just a like I know it might be going a little bit fast, but it's just kind of like a little prem review. Just my
is that your property?
Yes.
Oh, that's a sweet setup.
Again, I was actually speaking, Ricky. I was speaking to Rob there a little bit there yesterday. And I said this should all come up on even the interview. I go because I had certain things in place before anybody else. And when you look at what I was doing, with my training facility, I end up. It's a training facility, but it's actually on my personal property here in Coldwater, Michigan. I did not buy this property because of the house. I bought it more because of the two buildings that were on the property. The house was just an old house, and I simply do that with some sweat equity into the house. It'll be a very nice house. It had 5 bedrooms and 2 stories, so actually 3 stories if you want to include the basement, but. The basement, you had never entertained in the basement. It was known as the Michigan style basement, where it's kind of looks like a little bit like a dungeon in a lot of ways. So, I just I bought it because of this. It was a big pole barn structure, is what it was. 10,000 square feet of structure, and I just slowly, as I developed one main room, and it was actually what I call very, very humble beginnings because there was no running water. That was in place. So if you had to go to the restroom or something like that, you had to go up to the house. And I always had like a jug of water, something like that. So if you got thirsty, you just grab a little paper cup, take a drink, put your little name onto it. So, you wait till the end of practice, then you throw it away. I'm not going to have you keep just wasting cup after cup after cup. You just get a cup, write your name onto it, and then you use it for the whole practice. And then when you're done, then you pitch it away. Already instilling conservatism into their mindset, so they're not being wasteful. Again, that's really what it boils down to.
Hey, and while we're at it, let's throw another slogan from the 90s that has not been used enough in the modern era: reduce, reuse, recycle. Dan was on that train from way before those commercials.
Oh, yeah. Oh, trust me. As you get to know me a little bit more, you'll see that I'm a very I don't want to use the word conservative because a lot of people think, oh, he's this, he's on the
they
right
attach
side
it.
of everything.
Yeah, they try to attach it to negative things that it's not attached to.
Yeah, no, I look at it this way. I'm what's known as common sense. That's where I'm at. I hate both parties, but more people. But I tell people that I tend to lean a little bit more to the right because, well, gentlemen, let me ask you both a question. Do you guys like money?
Who doesn't?
Okay. Now, what category would you be in? If you like money at all, what category should you be in? If you had to choose between the two parties right now, what party likes money?
Both.
I would say both, but I will jump in there and say Republican.
Yeah, again, Republicans are more entrepreneur minded. Okay. Democrat type of policy, what they tend to push all the time is get on the government program, get your government cheese, get all these little niceties from the government. No, you don't want to be dependent upon them because do they really have your best interest? No, they don't. None of these people really run businesses, or if they do, they extort certain bills and stuff like that. So it benefits their businesses. So again, I'm I'm going to call a spade as we go through the program here. This edition might not get a chance to get much airing because you're going to have a lot of people that going, oh, no, Dan Severn cannot be saying this kind of stuff. Oh, yes, I can. It's still America, land of the free, home of the brave, where you have the right to speak your mind.
And that's exactly it, sir. And I 100% back that up. And honestly, people need to know stuff straight up, straightforward, and keep it real. Like you said, put it down the middle, leave all the other stuff out of it, bring facts, leave your opinions aside, get to the best answer. Now, since you're talking about the weight of politics and the influence of it, well, there's a huge shift that has happened in modern UFC that wasn't part of your experience of the UFC, and that is political influence cage side, political campaigning within the show. Yes, we had a political opposition through the late Senator McCain, but that was totally different. That was him versus the entire sport. Now the politicians are literally cage side, and there's many of them. I don't want to just point one name, and they're using it as a platform. Any thoughts on the political building and networking of the UFC now?
Well, no, I mean, it just common sense to me a lot. Like, if you go back several decades and stuff like that, you'll see where different presidents would be at a football game, something of that nature, because maybe they even participated in football at one point in time at whatever university that they held into. So, athletics will always be some type associated with it, and a UFC, it's one of those more what do you want to call primal, but it's definitely a sport that it's not for the weak of heart, as a competitor. But then the people there's a lot of people that enjoy watching. If they did look at the mass following that the industry of what used to be no holds barred is now known as mixed martial arts. So mixed martial arts has a huge following, and it always will. I mean, I like football because I know that every 30 seconds I'm going to see crash, bang, boom, crash, bang, boom. So again, I like football for that. I get my chuckle yucks about seeing huge men, destroying each other.
Yeah,
well,
for sure.
Right on that. I know Ricky has a question right up that alley.
Yeah, I saw recently that you had spoken about your love of football and playing football growing up.
Yes.
And we're at a place in football. We've been at a place in football or basketball or any major sport that has been around for a long time where people are always comparing eras, right? Oh, how would this era do against this era? How would people in that? And we're finally there in MMA. We're finally there specifically in the UFC to see, hey, we're now in 2024. So now we can look back and start comparing eras. Now, I know it's always not fair. And yes, every decade, the fighters should progress. They should get better. Yes. They should be more well-rounded. But how cool is it to now have that where we talk about the Dan Severns, we talk about the Don Fries of saying, if these guys weren't around, the Khabibs, the Connors, those people may not have been here yet.
No, I totally agree. And that's what the UFC... I'm not sure if they really realize this right now or any of the other public, but you got to realize the founders of this sport are still around. Yeah. And there should be more talking tables with these, not only just the people that created this, but also with the first tier level of athletes to get involved in this. You can't say that about all the people that started football. Poof, they're gone. Those who started basketball, poof, they're gone. Baseball, poof, they're gone. Here is a very unique opportunity that you have. Mixed martial arts, the UFC, just recently, within the last couple of months, the biggest sports merger in sports history just took place when you have now the WWE and the UFC now underneath the same umbrella. Who would have ever thought that professional wrestling with cage fighting would ever be underneath the same umbrella? It's kind of like phenomenal when you think about that, but there it is. There you go. And then you have to think to yourself, gee, who was one of those first guys that happened to be doing both of those industries?
Dan, not one of them. You are still accredited. If you go and look it up, Dan is accredited as the first person to ever compete in both at the same time. And that leads perfectly into the next question I had. Now that it's under the umbrella, now that TKO had made that merger between the two, is there anyone, or do you think there's anybody that's going to compete in both at the same time? We've seen guys like Logan Paul talk about how he really wants to fight in the UFC. He really wants a UFC fight, or guys that are in the UFC now that you can see, hey, they can go to the WWE, they can get the training and they can make it happen. Maybe when they're out of training camp, be competitive in the WWE as well.
Yeah, well, probably one of the most recognizable figures would be Brock Lesnar. Yeah, I mean, the fact that he's still there. I mean, you're looking at UFC and WWE. They're still negotiating back and forth just to see, who's going to get the next bid for him. I mean, Brock has done a very good job of marketing himself. Again, I don't know if it's him who's doing his marketing, but I'll just say that he's done an incredible job with his business savvy, in the sense that he's not on the crazy punishing road that most of these professional wrestlers are on. He gets to kind of pick and choose where he wants to go, and he can bounce back and forth. Who knows? There could be another resurgence of Brock in the Ultimate Fighting Championships, just like there could be another resurgence of him in professional wrestling. He's still young enough. He's still healthy enough to where he could go either or direction. But also, it just leaves that door open for how many other MMA guys that they established themselves as this character, and now when their MMA career comes to an end, they can now just use that same character that they developed in, and now just go into the world of professional wrestling, and they can parlay that into additional years, knowing that it should be a lot safer on their body.
Well, Dan, killer answer, because thank you. Perfect segue into what I wanted to ask you, sir. You've had the benefit of, before everybody else, being Dan the Beast Severn, wrecking people the real way. Obviously, you had a pro wrestling experience and NWA. I hope I got that acronym correct. But then when you went to the WWF at the time, now WWE, you got the benefit of playing yourself. You did your own self as a character. And is there, could you maybe go into, because you're the first guy to do that and nobody else really got to play themselves. Like, can you go through that a little bit? Because that's pretty huge in the wrestling world.
Well, I'll say that, I mean, Ken Shamrock actually was working with WWF at the time, now known as WWE, before I was. They were actually negotiating with both of us at the same time, but Ken just basically said, for X amount of dollars, boom, he's yours, okay? I was holding out because I was never exclusive to anybody. When I worked for the UFC, I was not exclusive to the UFC. When I was working for the NWA, I was not exclusive to NWA. I simply just said, I go, if I have a free weekend, are you going to pay me to sit home? And they're like, well, no. I go, then I'm not going to be loyal, and I'm not going to be sitting at home, not making any paydays. I said, because it was, when you look at, well, again, it's smart, but also what you have to look at is that how my career got launched there in the first place was out of necessity. And what I mean by that is that I was working as a coach. I coached, my collegiate career came to an end. I started my first coaching duties at Arizona State University. And I was Bobby Douglas' assistant wrestling coach. I was involved in that program from 1976 as a young athlete till 1986 for a solid decade, 5 years as a student athlete because I redshirted 1 year, and then 5 years as assistant wrestling coach before taking a job at Michigan State University. Now, you think that's cool being assistant wrestling coach at a major university. My salary at Arizona State was $3,200 a year. $3,200 a year. Can you live on that for a year? No. So I actually had a real job on top of that. I was working for a weightlifting manufacturing company. So by day, I'm installing weight equipment. I'm actually helped building weight equipment. In less than 1 year, I went from low man on the totem pole. Low man on the totem pole is a guy that's washing all of this, all of these squat racks, bench presses, dip bars, pull-up bars. Yet because there's like a greasy type residue and that's on them, you have to wash all down, and then it gets dried, and then it goes to the spray booth so that now they can actually spray it up to whatever color that it has to be. So almost for like the first several months, I was like a duck. My feet were always wet. But the owner, I started coming up with some ideas. I told him, because I was in my degree basically was in industrial arts. So if you ever took a shop class in high school, basically I was in all of these different types of things because I wanted to become a teacher in that arena. But then upon graduation, I started working on a master's degree, and it was called a master's of education with a field of specialization. And my field of specialization was into manufacturing. So I started telling the gentleman, I go, you got all these raw materials coming in, and they're being unloaded here, but then they got to be carted over here to all the chop saws, stuff like that. I go, you should really have this all in alignment to where raw materials here, they're stacked up in here. They go right in line to where you're saving man hours. You're saving
streamlining the
wear and tear
process.
of people's body to simply slide it right in here. You start cutting it here. You go right into the welding apparatus. So in 1 year, I went from low man on the totem pole to the owner's right-hand man, to where I even came up with ideas that all of these high schools at the time, the universal weightlifting machine was the machine that every school owned. It was basically a square box that had, pull-up bars, had lat pull down, seated pulls, they had seated leg press, dip bar hooked up behind it. It is like 14 different exercises that you could do on this thing. And I would be going out, and every time I go out there, they would always they had broken plates onto them. They'd have frayed cables or pulleys that were gone. And literally, I just told the owner, I said, realistically, I said, you should do each fall. You should do that the pre-fall season. What was that? What's the word I'm looking for? Where I go out there to just check the equipment. I just do a quick to check into equipment to make sure they don't have frayed cables, broken plates, because if you have a frayed cable, you got the chance of actually the cable snapping, and an athlete could get hurt. So just basically like a fall servicing. And literally, I said, I put it together. I even told the guy, I said, this is what you probably should charge. And I said, in reality, what's going to do is they're going to pay me to come out, clean their piece of equipment, analyze it, and it's going to create sales, because they all have broken plates onto them. They all have frayed cables on them, because no one ever teaches all these athletes how to use these pieces of equipment. They just use them. So, and the funny part is, the same weightlifting company actually sold these multi-station pieces of equipment. So sometimes people would trade in their old piece, which they wouldn't get very much out of them. But we had 4 or 5 of these pieces of equipment, and if someone needed a new plate onto it, I just took a plate off of the old thing, spray painted it all on up so it looked like it's brand new, walk right back out there. But, all the cables and pulleys, all that were the same thing, but the weight is weight. And that's what people don't realize. Is just, all I got to do is simply just spray paint it with some type of Rust-Oleum type of paint, and it should last you for quite a few years. So again, just use the common sense. But as I stated before, as we first started this, common sense is not very common anymore.
Well, how much of that do you accredit towards your upbringing, or do you think that you're just kind of wired differently? Because obviously growing up in the Midwest, growing up in that farm life with all the siblings you had, I'm sure that plays a huge role into just the way your mind works and how you operate day to day. That sense of like, I can't stay still. I have to be putting work into something.
No, I'll say that, perfect question, perfect statement and question. No, that laid the foundation. Honestly, growing up on a farm, you learn really quickly that you don't throw away too many things.
Right.
You know that you're going to have to repurpose it somewhere down the road. and it's kind of ironic here right now, because the Severn farm is still in the Severn name. My grandfather owned this piece of property. My father was the baby of 12 living children. I have to say it like that because back then you did not go to hospital to have a live birth. You simply had it at home, and usually you had a woman there that was helping you see you through the thing. I still remember going to that property when I was a very young child, and they had an actual mudroom. A lot of people call it their mudroom, but they don't even know what a mudroom is. I mean, literally, you'd come in from out on the farm, and you had your boots on or something like that, and they're always muddy or something like that. So thus the name, the mudroom. And that's where you took off your boots, your coat, stuff like that. And you go into my grandparents' home. Out in the middle of this living room area, they had a potbelly stove, which was the only form of heat. This was a big old 2-story home, and the only form of heat that was on it. And my grandfather always had a pot of coffee on top of always staying warm at all times. The running water was a hand pump inside the mudroom.
Wow.
So again, how many people know what a hand pump is? I guarantee most 90+% of your audience is not going to know what a freaking hand pump is, and that's how you got your water. And your restroom was a outhouse.
Yep.
Okay, but my grandparents was a little bit more affluent because they had a 2-holer outhouse, so that you could sit next to somebody else and carry on the conversations. So how's it going there today? You know,
like the double wide of outhouses. That's spectacular.
No, and no partitions, nothing like that. So it get just kind of comical and ironically, I mean that the house is gone, but that old outhouse has been preserved and is still on that property as a memento and a reminder.
Yeah, for sure. So, hey, whenever somebody asks you, Dad, how close are you with your family? Well, you can't get any closer than that, can you?
Well, okay, the comical part, going back that time there, toilet paper really was not invented. So it was all magazines, newspapers, things of that nature. So again, this way, what do they think of the news? Well, it's only good enough to wipe your ass with. Okay, so there you go.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that.
Oh no, again, but it's good. Here, you like this. I remember going to an auction once with my father and my grandfather, and I happened to see one piece of equipment that I did not know what it was. And I'm looking at this. I'm like, Dad, I go, what is this? And my dad says to me, he says, well, son, he goes, that's a manure spreader. Then my grandfather, pats me on the back. He goes, oh, no. He goes, that there is called the politician. All it does is spread shit.
Yeah,
that's right. Again, Grandpa Severn was like, boom, was spot on.
Yeah. Grandpa Severn would still be accurate today.
Oh, I get it.
No matter what.
So relevant today because again, what you understand, in 3 generations, my grandfather could not read nor write because he grew up on a farm. He did go to school. He actually worked at home, and whatever he learned, just being around other siblings and things of that nature. And my grandfather, I remember going to like the granary with him, where basically you would sell your corn, your bean, your wheat, things of that nature. And I actually watched him make his mark in the ledger. Didn't write his name; he just made his mark. He knew what his mark was, but he was really good with money, so really savvy and that sense. So it was really kind of again just to see how well he functioned. And so again, that just to show you like the Severn lineage. My grandfather, who was illiterate. Now, my grandmother basically grew up in Bayport, Michigan, fishing docks. She had such a salty mouth on her that she was asked to leave school because she cursed more than she could, speak any other language. Because she grew up around all these old sailors that had these salty mouths. So she acquired a very salty mouth at a very young age. So I always tell people, one generation, I have 2 parents that basically fall into that illiterate category. My father is the baby of 12 living children, of which only a couple of his siblings actually ever graduated high school. He graduated high school and actually was the first one ever to take some college courses. That's second generation. Third generation, My parents have 8 children. I'm son number 2 on the totem pole.
Right.
All 8 kids have some type of a college degree. So in 3 generations, look what has happened to one set of immigrants, because nobody is a native of the United States. The only native here in the United States is the American Indian. They're the only natives that are here. Everybody else is a transplant for somewhere.
I
And
will.
that's
I,
the stupidity of a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
I back that up 100%, but I put one little asterisk just because we're last to join the union. Team Hawaii, the Hawaiians, we're in this too. We was there first, but we're glad to be a part, because just like you said, Mr. Severn, and I want to echo that to everybody. All right, we are all children of the immigrant system, one way or another.
Yes.
We all joined Team Red, White, and Blue through sweat, sacrifice, tears, and blood. So honor the generations before you. Care, learn, look. It wasn't that easy. Everything we have now stands upon the hard work and sacrifice of those who came before,
Right.
which is just like the UFC, right?
Yes.
And before we go into the UFC and how you helped lay the foundation for that and things went forward, we had a beautiful conversation you shared with me about the silver lining through hard times. So I would like to revisit that those couple of years right before you got into the UFC, and I remember just some plans that you had that didn't go their way, and then tough man competition. I'll just let you take it over.
Well, I mean, it was again how I ever got involved in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Again, it was I was putting my degree to work. I left Arizona State University. I took to Michigan State. Well, at Michigan State, the head coach was involved in some things that he should not have been. It's like, a lot of times you're just guilty by association. So I'll just say that I ended up leaving Michigan State, and the gentleman that was there, and I use that term gentleman quite loosely, ended up going to prison. So it's like, I guess you get the bed that you made for yourself. But I ended up taking a job with a friend of mine over in Chicago. And that was really tough on the family, because I would leave every Sunday late afternoon. Is a 5-hour drive on in, get to his place, crash on out, come Monday morning, boom, I'm right there to go to work. Because again, I know how to work. I know how to work equipment. I know how to push buttons, pull levers, and do all this. At first, they wanted to bring me. He and his father wanted to bring me in as leadership, being more of that white collar type of individual. And they had some issues that was taking place in their company, and they brought me in to try to see what the problem is. I go, do not bring me in as supervision over all of them, because they're not going to want to talk to me. They'll look at me as the enemy. I said, bring me in as a blue collar worker that's going to push button, pull levers, make parts. When the brakes come on, we'll be standing around the coffee machine, have a cup of coffee, and talking bad about them, the whole 9 yards. I said, bring me in as that kind of guy. And I said, and they'll open up to me. And it worked just the way they should have. I went in there, I'm just working stuff. The guy's getting to know me. And this went on for a few months. And the bad part was, when I finally had to give the report, was you had wonderful workers. The problem was you and your father. Because, only because they would argue out in front of all the other employees and stuff like that, and they should not have done that. If you're going to have some disputes amongst yourself, that should be all done in private. But because they're doing it all public, it made things a little bit skinny wampus. But I mean, it's I'll just say that. I kind of felt bad that there was a report that I had to give, and I just basically turned my key in and I left. And I'll say that all at the same time, I had another opportunity to come down to Coldwater, Michigan. I had a home out in Arizona that I sold. I bought a home in Owasso, Michigan while I was working at Michigan State. Then I still had that home in Owasso, Michigan. And when I had this job opportunity here down in Coldwater, now I'm being promised a certain salary, all the bells, buzzers, and whistles that a young married man with a couple of children, wanted to hear.
Yeah.
It's a long commute. Okay, this is everything I was hoping for. I trusted this man, and I ended up buying a bigger home, all based upon the salary. So I ended up going all in because I asked the guy, I go, how long do I have to wait to make this decision? He goes, 2 weeks. So in a 2-week period of time, I sold a home, I bought a home, I relocated my family, I went to work, and at the end of the first week, I did not have a job. And that was all back in that 1992 time period. The country was in a recession, borderline depression. There weren't jobs available. And here I contacted an attorney friend of myself to see, do I have any leg to stand on for unwrongful discharge or something like that? But that's what the at-will clause came in, and people could just let you go at will with no explanation really whatsoever. I couldn't find the guy that hired me. He was like MIA, missing in action. And so, my legal advisor said, you need to go sign up for unemployment. I go, how do you do that? I have never been unemployed in my entire life. And I remember going down to the unemployment office, and here you got all these feeble-looking individuals. And I'm walking in and look like man mountain. I'm thinking, geez, I mean, I got people staring at me left and right. They think of me. It's like, this guy looks like a bulldozer, a crane, and everything all wrapped into one. It's like going, he's a one man wrecking machine. It's like going, and I'm signing up for this, and it's like going, it was so humiliating to me that I got to do something, and I saw a flyer. And the flyer was about a tough man competition that was taking place up at Battle Creek, Michigan, only about 40 minutes from my home here down in Coldwater. And first prize was $1,000. I needed $1,000. I needed to pay mortgage payments. I needed to keep food on the table. So basically, I didn't tell my wife what I was going to do. I simply said, "I'll be back in a few hours. I have to go and do some wrestling." And she just knew it. I did different kinds of workouts and things of nature, so didn't think of it any whatsoever. So I basically pieced together what I'm going to wear at this tough man competition, and people were laughing at me because a lot of these tough man competitors, they might actually had some little bit of boxing background. They actually had the right type of trunks and shoes and whether they went with a shirt on or a shirt off. I show up wearing amateur wrestling shoes, which kind of look like boxing shoes, and an amateur wrestling singlet is what I put on. So literally, when I walk out there, my hair is jet black. I got this black mustache. I'm out there. I don't even know how to hold my hands. People are looking at me and they're laughing. I probably look like John L. Sullivan himself, just the way that I'm holding my hands, put my hands up, and then there's only 2 weight classes. There's 190 pounds and under, and then anything over. And I was in that category of anything over. So my first guy's like 300 plus pounds. He comes out, but the unique part, I should back up for one moment. I had already also jumped into professional wrestling training. For the last couple of weeks, I've been traveling to Lima, Ohio, and was training with Al Snow, professional wrestler and trainee Al Snow. With Head, he's got the
we know Al Snow, sir.
Oh, he's so funny. He's such a gifted person. Just the WWF/WWE never really utilized him the way that they should have. Just a great resource, just a great person altogether. But nevertheless, here I am. I already knew. I've been training for a couple of weeks with Al, a couple times a week, and I knew the dynamics of a professional wrestling ring. And here I see them setting up this professional wrestling ring. I'm thinking, man, I might utilize this to my advantage here as well. So match number 1 in this tough man contest. On Friday night, you do 1 match, and then come Saturday night, you finish up however many people are left. It's just a round robin. You just keep going till your last man standing. So first night, I got this big old hoss. He's just throwing these big old haymakers. I just basically, I moved backwards, and all of a sudden, I just bounce off the rope. I hit, and I can't break through. I hit him in the chest, with both gloves, and I've got him backpedaling. I've got we're heading right for dead center of the ropes on the other side, knowing that there's going to be this big old rubber band factor. It's going to go do and then as soon as I feel inertia coming back into me, I wrap my hands right around his waist, and I did a belly to belly suplex. So not a belly to back, belly to belly. I launched him through the air, and I mean and he hits hard, and he's all disgruntled. The crowd just erupts because they had never seen anything like that. And the owner, Art Doer, he looks like Wolfman Jack. He's got his all this white hair, white beard. He's in his tuxedo. He jumps up out of his seat. I look down at him. He's got the microphone in his hand. He looks up at me and goes, "Well, throw him again. Game on."
Yeah,
So,
that's awesome.
I couldn't box, but going out there with each match, they throw one or two. I just cover up. I'd get like an underhook. I'd do like a hip toss. I'd get an underhook. I'd club them this way. I'd club that way. It's like I look like some barbarian because I didn't do nothing that looked like boxing whatsoever. I'm just like swinging clubs this way, swinging back that way. Whether I hit him on this side or I club him back, hit him with the back of the fist of the glove, and all I know is that 2 days, and I think it was 7 men later, 5 or 7. Again, maybe the folklore's getting longer here. I'll say 5 men. Okay, I'll cut it shorter. But I'll just say that newfound skills. Even when I was, and so I won that. The UFC, I was just becoming aware of the UFC. NWA wanted to put me to an exclusive contract. There was a thought of putting the NWA title belt on me because it was at the time, back at that time period, the NWA was almost extinct. I think there's only like 3 or 4 promoters left in the entire world. And one of the ideas that came up, and I don't know if it's from Dennis Carluzzo or a couple other people, I had to follow back up because that's something I'm trying to do in one of my next books. To find out where that real lineage came from as to whose idea that was, but to put the title on me. So the NWA title belt got a lot more exposure. And even when I was in the Ultimate Fighting Championship, I'm the only professional wrestler ever that was allowed to have a professional wrestling title belt carried out to the octagon and then proceed to win the 8-man tournament. Because back at that time, it was an 8-man tournament. You had to face and defeat 3 opponents in a night. So as I'm inside the octagon cage, I'm holding up the current UFC title belt with the NWA title belt. So, that was back in 1994. And now you see professional wrestling and MMA united as the biggest sports merger today. So it's like going, who's that first cat that held both title belts inside of the octagon?
Yeah,
we know who he is. Everybody, and I'll tell you this, Mr. Severn, you know my story. I'm a day one fan. I'm the rarest breed of them all. I was an 8-year-old day one fan. I got the privilege of watching you as a very young person live fight in Hawaii. I've been watching you fight literally since that moment. It's burned in my head just like it is yours, sir. And I swear, as long as I'm still on this planet, I'm going to be teaching these stories and lessons to anybody and everybody that gives me 2 seconds of their time. This stuff is not going to go forgotten.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, but it's good to have videotape because you got to realize there's a lot of records from the past that you'd be lucky to see if you have an old letter or maybe a picture. That picture would have been some sort of a black and white, because even when I look at my old family's family tree and things of that nature, that's what some of the stuff that I have. I have some letters from my grandma Severn, and again, to see her write, she wrote very phonetically. I mean, she spelled my name Danny, Dannie. Okay,
yeah.
But she did not have the formal. Again, she spelled everything the way that she thought it should be spelled, but even though it would be incorrect in today's spelling, I could read her all of her letters, stuff like that, just fine.
Well, and Dan, you were talking about having things recorded now and the luxury of being able to look back and go through. The most amazing thing. Now, I'm a little bit younger than Rob, so I didn't unfortunately didn't get the chance to watch you fight while you were fighting. I have to go back and do my
Well,
research and pay homage to those people. But the one thing that I came across that I was like, this is insane was that pro MMA record that you are accredited for, 101 wins. You could look at it now, guys. If you go and just look up UFC 6, UFC 5, whatever it is, anything that Dan is on the card of, you see all these other records, 15-3, 21-7, 6-6, the things that you're used to. And then you see Dan Severn's record, 101, 19-7. How are you capable? How was your body able to put that much mileage on it? And could you even imagine seeing a modern athlete do that where they get to 100 plus MMA wins?
Yeah, it'll be tough nowadays only because the level of the competitor has risen. Um, Not to take anything away from the gentlemen, because there was only men that were competing at the time. I think women came in somewhere in the early 2000s. I can't give you a specific date there onto it, but it was all just men that were walking into it. And back in those early UFCs, there was only two basic rules: no biting, no eye gouging.
Yeah.
But even then, those were not grounds for disqualification.
Wow.
Big John might simply go in there and just go slap your hand, go, hey, don't do that again, and give him his eyeball back. And I say it kind of kidly like that because I remember distinctly watching one of the matches where the Alaska polar bear, Paul Varlins,
Yes, sir.
was eye raked a couple times, and he did eventually lose eyesight in that eye. So I just want people to understand that when you walked out into the octagon, you actually signed a contract that stated in fine print at the bottom, in the event of your accidental death. Think about it. What were the only two things you could do? I can't bite you, and I can't stick my finger in your eye. How many different ways do you think you could take a person's life without ever violating those two rules?
Right.
Nowadays we know there's literally hundreds.
Yeah, and there were no time limits. I want people to understand there were no time limits. When a match started, it would end when somebody was basically unconscious, whether that be from a knockout with their hands, feet, knees, elbows, headbutts. I mean, all these things were allowed at that point in time. Or they could, again, they'd be unconscious from some type of knockout or chokeout. Or a submission lock. They could have, whatever arm bar or something like that. The guy could be screaming out in pain, and that they'd have to be signaling for that of defeat, and that's how matches end. So, on two different ends, I was involved in two different tournaments where I was in the cage for the shortest period of time of taking care of my three opponents, but then I was also in the cage for the longest period of time. And that was just over 1 hour between my three opponents. And that was in Denver, Colorado, mile high elevation on top of that. So when more and more people find out about me and the fact that I do not come from a fighting background, I came from an amateur wrestling background. I was actually the first amateur wrestler to get involved in the sport. It's a great background to have. But then to go for as many years as I did, but when you look at what I'm proudest of the career is the fact that I'm lifetime chemical free. Now I've got freakishly farm boys type strength, but that just came from growing up a farm, always doing hard work. But then throughout my entire amateur wrestling career, of what I did, my foundation there upon, but also the fact that I never went outside of my element. I knew that I was never going to win matches with the fisticuffs, but my opponents had to be within arm's reach to punch, legs reach to kick, knee, elbow, and I was simply good about simply staying a little bit out of range. And then as it got closer to try to throw something on in, I try to move away from it, and as they recoil it back in, I would either try to clinch them out in the open, standing clinch, jam them up at the cage wall, or take them down. If I did just one of those three things, I would neutralize 90+% of their capabilities. And my capabilities are just commencing. So it's easy. I mean, ground and pound, when you look at matches, the three basic ways that matches are going to end up, ground and pound is still number one. Very, very barbaric, but oh, so effective. Ball up your fist much like a club and start to bludgeon your opponent somewhere around that neck, face, chest type of region. It's number one is still ground and pound. Number two is some form of a choke, and number three is an arm bar. I mean, I would tell people I'm a stats guy. You know, being an amateur wrestler, it's all about the stats. And if you want to prepare properly for an opponent, what are their strong attributes? Try to avoid their strong attributes and look for weaknesses, and then try to capitalize on those weaknesses. So there's not any what I call rocket science to this, but you'd be surprised how many people think like, oh wow, Dan Severn, I can't believe the way that you think about this stuff. I go, but to know that I did those 100+ matches. Do you see cauliflower ears on me? Okay.
No,
Do you see a
sir.
broken nose on me? Do you see any missing teeth? I mean, they're crooked, but they're still originals. Okay. And the fact that you could have a cognitive conversation with me with all those matches, that speaks volumes for how I protected myself. Because what is the biggest, I should say, the longest rated contributor to CTE, Alzheimer, and dementia was boxing.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it's been around for 100+ years. Football, helmet to helmet. Okay, I'd say there's another good contributor. But with mixed martial arts having 30 years going here right now, it's the new kid on the block. Because you see it, well, you see guys taking too many shots. But what I don't like seeing is the moment that you knock me out, bang, the back of my head hits that canvas harder than you ever hit me to knock me out. As I lay there, lifeless, that now the opponent jumps down on top of me. It hits me another 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times or more before the referee jumps in there and goes, hey, he's knocked out. What are those additional blows doing to you? Right. It's even a lot of MMA guys, just like boxers, they don't even train properly. The coach will say, here, put on this headgear. That way you don't get cuts, won't break your nose, won't knock out any teeth, things of that nature. But each time you feel that percussion, that gray matter known as your brain is being rattled around inside there. And maybe that's part of why the fact that I only ever did 2 training camps, once for 32 days, once for 35 days. Well, for UFC number 4, I took out 5 days. Okay, I don't know if I really wish the era of the cell phone was around and the video camera stuff like that, because going over to Lime, Ohio, and work out with AllStar and a couple other professional wrestling proteges, it was pure comedy. You couldn't help but laugh at all the stuff that was taking place, because they'd have on a pair of gloves, and then I'd be bare knuckle. They're like, "Oh, you can't punch me." I go, "I'm not going to punch you. I'll never throw a punch. I'll parry, as you guys throw punches. I'll parry just so that I can knock some down and then move right into clinches, takedowns, or jam up against the cage roll. Just to say that was my strategy, because I knew that I'm not going to win the striking contest, but as long as I keep my hands up to where they'll hit my arms or hit my hands, that'll move you." So again, that was my strategy way back then. But I'll just say that it worked for me.
And it worked real effing well. 101, 19, and 7 kids. Like, listen,
those watchdogs of that industry, when did they exist? Not till a couple years after the sport even began, that the sure dogs, the full contact fighters, all of these other watchdogs of mixed martial arts. Right. What's literally in UFC number 4, the whole Gracie clan was able to get out of the octagon right away. It took them 45 minutes to get me out of that cage, because the crowd just converged on down, and they swarmed around the cage. I couldn't get on the octagon, but I also had all these different business people handed me business cards, handed me card after card after card. Give me a phone call. I want to do this with you. I want to do that with you. And the whole 9 yards, because they just, when they saw me simply just grab another human being and bodily launch them in those belly to back suplexes. Again, the gentleman's name was Anthony Macias. I've gotten to know Anthony since that time. To
That
where
dog.
his son, Anthony has a son that is an amateur wrestler. I told him to send me a couple of his matches. I critiqued his matches, said back these are things that he really should work on to be a little bit more successful. So again, it's kind of like I hold no animosity against any of the people I've competed against. Probably the only person I really ever held any kind of animosity against would have been like Tank Abbott, only because he showed himself to be just an evil character, and he displayed it by he knocks out his first opponent, and his opponent just lay a limp like that. He has the audacity just to jump down and strike him again. The guy's laying there, knocked out, helpless. And I go, and you strike. I go, the moment that he did this, I'm like, oh! I go, when I watched it, I go, you son of a bitch, you! I go, if I should ever have you in that octagon cage, evil will be got a greater evil. I could turn on things. I go, you don't even expect it. And literally, when I finally got my wish come true, I orchestrated, because I was told it was the first time that they actually had a timetable. I had, I think it was was it a 20-minute match? I don't know if it was 20-minute match or it was a 30-minute match, but time limit, I'll say 20. You knew that it's going to be for a 20-minute match, and I simply knew that I want to beat him. Not quickly. I want to torture him for almost the whole duration of this match, and then because I had AllStar in my corner, and he had watch on, so that he's keep me where I go. My whole goal, I said, if it goes right, I go, I'm going to clinch. I'm going to get Tank down, and I'm going to keep him down on the mat, and I need you to yell out when we get down to that final like 3-minute mark. And I go and that's what happened. I kept him down on mat, just kept beating down, throwing knees, elbows, headbutts, the whole 9 yards. And then when Al yelled out, I let Tank get up on his feet. I jammed him up against the cage wall, and I threw several more knee shots at the sciatic nerves of the body, knowing that his legs are going to be all just limp and Charlie horses and things of that nature, to where I don't want him to be able to push off, get any kind of leg thrust, to be able to throw any kind of punch and final. And when they yelled out that final 1 minute, because that was the thing, go, let me know in a couple of minutes, I'll let him get up his feet, jam him in the cage wall, but I know what I'm going to do is there. And then when they finally yelled out the final 1 minute, my whole goal was trying to pull off a belly-to-back suplex. I guess what it is. I want, because the thing is like going, who else can say that they orchestrated their own match? Yeah. I want to punish him for the full duration. And now at the end of this credenza, I want the two symbols to come together to where it's like, this is the climatic moment of all this. And but that's what I was looking for. But he hung on to the cage. He dropped his hip. So, he did a lot of things in defense of the move. And then basically, I just pushed away. And that basically was the end of the match. But, I think I lost probably 4 or 5 pounds of water weight just in that match, because then people don't realize how hot those lights are. And I punched my work card in, and I went to work for 20 hard minutes.
You did.
Never being relentless. It's like hammer strike after hammer strike, punch after punch. And when the right arm got tired, go to the left arm, throw knees, headbutts, the whole 9 yards. And I use my amateur wrestling skills to keep taking out post and that, to where if he tried to get up, I just take away different types of post and just drop him on down to mat. So,
and this is something you're talking about. Like there's so many subtle things that look the same but are wildly different. Like even just you said, the lighting to put on a production back in those days, those lamps were hot. Hot. It was anywhere there was light, it was hot like the sun. And nowadays everything is LED based, so it can be bright like the sun and you don't feel nothing. So big differences just in condition for the athlete. Now, I know I could see it in your eyes, sir. You look like you still had a little bit of sauce for Tank Abbott even right now. And if you anybody who looked up Tapology, they would see that you had a canceled bout scheduled in 2016, which wasn't that long ago. Is there any like what? Can you just please help me
Well,
out there?
when I finally got to the point of retirement, again, I'd have to look at things. It's kind of like going, I don't ponder these things because I just do it when I do it, and then I just move on. I just keep moving on to the next thing. When I came to, I said I think I'm going to retire now from the cage fighting industry, because I refer to it as cage fighting because it was, it's going through its transformation, going from NHB to MMA. But then there were still different pockets of Japanese organization that they would call it something different. So I just referred to the whole industry as cage fighting. So I said, I'm going to retire now from cage fighting. I go with a clause. My clause was, if one of these three gentlemen, and right down the line, going with a Mark Coleman, a Ken Shamrock, a Hoist Gracie, if one of these three were to come up as a possible opponent, I would seriously contemplate coming back out of retirement, pending how old, fat, and out of shape am I at that point in time. Because if I'm too far gone, if I've been hitting the Dairy Queen just a little bit too much, I mean, I'll just let it go and just say, hey, guys, I got my new sponsor, Dunkin' Donuts, here right now, and I'll let that one go at that point in time. But the opportunity did come up a couple years after the fact. It was a match with Ken Shamrock,
Right.
and so this opportunity comes up, but I'm not really dealing with a fight company. I'm dealing with more like a media style company, and I mean they really do nothing about the fight game. I found them the state of Arizona. I found them the venue. I mean, I did almost everything for them, to get them a state and athletic commission, the whole 9 yards that would put on one of these type of matches. But just to have Ken basically back out just a couple weeks before, he wanted to. There's an opportunity for him to do another match with Hoist Gracie, and it just. I'll just say that. I kind of was mad at this company. I said, don't you have him under his contract? Because he'll be a breach of contract. I mean, I'm just I wanted to get this match to take place, because what people don't understand is I only trained for 5 days before I walked into UFC number 4. 5 days down for an hour and a half a day. And I never learned a single punch, never learned a single submission move. I was just, again, with Al Snow and a couple other professional wrestling proteges, and they were trying to punch me, kick me, do whatever. And I just basically did amateur wrestling techniques, would slap on amateur wrestling techniques after I took them down, whether it would be a headlock, bylock, singles, doubles, whatever. And then I would slap on amateur wrestling techniques. Amateur wrestling techniques teaches you the principles of leverage. Another word for leverage means it hurts. So
Yes.
you're taking people against their will. And then I did 2 other training camps, one for 32 days, one for 35 days. For this camp, I literally had prepared for myself for 4 months.
Damn.
For 4 months, I was training 2 and sometimes 3 times a day. I mean, I weighed in. I think I was down to 219 pounds. I haven't seen 219 pounds in the last couple of decades. Okay, and I mean, I try to keep composure, but I mean, I was pissed.
Yeah.
And I go, I still want to weigh in. I want to be public knowledge. I stepped in, I was here. I did everything I was supposed to do. I'm here. Even this match that came up with Ken and Hoist, Scott Coker production. I can't even remember what.
Bellator, sir. Yes, Bellator.
Okay, yeah, for Bellator. I haven't contacted Scott, and I simply said that, Scott, I have history with both these athletes. I said, how would you like to have me on as a kind of a special guest commentator for maybe their match? And he kind of like poo-pooed on it there a little bit there. I go, I'll tell you what, let me sweeten the pot there for you. I go, what if I take the winner between the two of them? And he basically is like, well, he still poo-poos a little bit more on this, like going, hey, I'm not sure if these legend matches are going to really about anything to begin with. I go, here's the best deal I could possibly give you. Let me give you a good old-fashioned Kmart 2-for-1 special. I'll fight them both. I'll fight them both in the same night.
Oh.
I go, but we're going to do this old school fashion. The night they don't know who is going to go first until the night of the show. At the beginning of the show, walk out there with them both and flip a coin to find out who goes first. And then give me 3-4 matches in between, and then I'll take on whoever goes second. And then I went on to say, and if I don't beat them both, you owe me nothing.
Wow. That's a proposition.
He turned it down.
Well, he probably, you know how those promoters are, sir. They got ears everywhere. So they probably heard how much you were training, how dedicated you were, and where you were at. And they're like, we don't want to sink the guys that are kind of our faces, our icons that we have floating, our legends around our league. If we let Dan just come in and just kill them, well, shoot, now we don't have any credible legends. So yeah. I could see that. I could see why they.
You're being kind there, Rob. I'll just say you're being kind there. I just think that there's some things that there's been a lot of promoters in whether it be for professional wrestling or mixed martial arts that because they never climbed into that cage. They never trained in that sport. They don't understand what's going through a lot of these athletes' mind. And that's I'll just kind of leave it at that because there's you do have a lot of ownership, and they dare to say that they understand where you come from. No, you don't, because you have never worn my shoes. So
yes,
you have those. You have no real practical experience application wise. I mean, how much sweat equity. Right. I put it this guy. I talk about sweat equity all the time because, when I showed up at professional wrestling, the same way I showed up in the professional wrestling, I wore a gray shirt and trunks. And there's nothing flashy about me, but what a lot of people understand is like, to me, I know what that gray shirt represented. When I was at whatever practice I went to through high school, I would soak through a couple shirts. In college, I used to rate my workouts by how many gray shirts I would sweat through because you would only be issued a set of grays. And I rated my workouts standard 2. And I don't mean just a little bit of a ring around the neck. I mean, soaked right through to where like it just came out of the washing machine and wasn't going to go through any spin cycles. It's just sopping full of wet. A standard workout for Dan Severn would be losing anywhere from 8 to 10 pounds of liquid during a 2.5-hour workout because the rooms are hot to begin with, and then when you start going live goes stuff like that. So, it was they're hard again. They're just hard workouts, but then there'll be times that even when the workout's done, it's like I still have to go sit in the sauna for the next 20-30 minutes there too because I got to sweat out a little bit more weight. It is also therapeutic, even though I did not look at it. I kind of despised saunas at that point in time because I was spending so much time into them. But then in my coaching days, most of you guys will find this kind of funny. There'd be times that I would bring in the entire wrestling team inside of a sauna. And the only room, I mean, again, there's your standing room only because you got so many guys inside this sauna room right there. And the only room there was on the one floor bench, to where we pulled out a deck of cards, shuffle them on up, pull the card, whatever card it said. That's how many push-ups you have to do. Whatever that was, like only 7 push-ups. But if you pull up any face card, 10 push-ups, and ace means 11. So no one wanted to pull up ace and stuff like that because it's hot in the sauna. You throw that many more bodies in there now, the humidity and the heat even rises that much more. So, I mean, it's literally probably the coolest area was when the guy was going down on doing the push-ups. Probably the only coolest area is the lowest down on the ground. And you had to stay in there until you went through at least the whole deck once Because it's like, if you guys are coming up here, you come in, but you stay until the whole deck has gone through 52 cards.
That
Now,
is a challenge, man.
the harder ones is when you go to the deck twice. That didn't happen very often. Typically, standard was one time through the deck, 52 times. That's a lot. That's a long time to stay in there, especially when you start looking. You have to keep. Each guy's got to pull out that card, and the cards would all be curled up because they're getting wet, sopped on, and stuff like that.
Sweaty and stuff.
It was a nasty looking deck of cards, but it was the same deck of cards that's used over and over and over again. But who brought in that deck of cards? Me, because I kept thinking, I got to make it a game. It's got to be a game. It's got to be challenging, and you have to stay here till the deck is done. And you'd have guys that are, oh, coach, I'm getting so tired. I'm getting weak-headed. Oh, here. If you bear with me to tell one other story here, because this is just funny, just again to show you my dedication as a coach. I'm coaching at Michigan State University. I'll leave the athlete's name out of it right now. He'll know who he is. But it was a 2-day tournament. He did not think he was going to make it through day one, so thus he ate a little bit more than he should have, and he drank a little bit more than he should have. But you have to make weight. You have to make weight for the next day. So you're going through this competition, and you have to weigh in that night. So he's going through his workout and stuff like that, and he's at that mental part of he's breaking. He's got the sweatsuit on. He's got the sauna suit on. He said, Coach, he goes, I don't know if I can do much more. I go, yeah, okay, that's fine. I go, just go into the sauna. Just go and sit in the sauna. And just relax in there and just keep rocking, because they keep rocking. They're at least doing something to help generate a little bit more motion, a little bit more heat. And then basically I strip down to my underwear and I walk into the sauna. And he doesn't even realize I'm stripped down to my underwear. And he's looking at me, Coach, he goes, I gotta get out. He gets up and I push him down. Not down on the ground, but I pushed him back down to where he's sitting on the bench. He looks up, his eyes are big, and he's like, Coach. I said, you have to make weight. I go, the biggest sin in the world is a wrestler not making weight. I said, you will make weight, whether it's sweat or blood I get out of you, you're going to make weight. He stands back up. I go, try to get past me. And he tried, I push him back down again. He gets, I go, get angry, pummel with me. And we're starting to pummel, something like that. And I'm like, it's just, he's going, and he's breaking down, stuff like that. I go, cry a little bit more. I go, cry, more water coming out. That's fine. I rubbed his back. I'm consoling. I'm not trying to be mean to him, but I'm also trying to keep him fired up all at the same time. I kept him in there for probably another 45 minutes with all this stuff that I was doing between pummeling and things of that nature, get him push against the wall, things of that nature. I could do wall push-ups and that just to keep some kind of motion. And I go, you're done. I walk him out there, and I've got a towel, and literally as he's peeling off all the stuff, water's dripping off and stuff like that. And I'm taking like this towel and I'm squeegeeing him off, so we get all this water off, and he stands on a scale. He makes weight. He's like a half pound under, and then I've got liquids sitting there waiting for us. So he's powdered liquid, stuff like that. And he looks at me, he goes, Coach, he goes, I would have never done this without you. I go, I know. I go, that's my job. And I go, I don't take that. I know he was angry and stuff like that. And at the time, I go, but it's only because he was reacting. In today's world, I would probably be up on charges. Because they go, oh, you're being so mean. No, I knew what I had to do for my athlete. And I did it for my athlete. And he'll probably regale that story for many, many decades to come of like, look what Coach Severn did for me. But then they'll say, well, look what Coach Severn went on to do. So it's good. I always tell people that I've done different things throughout my life because I'm trying to help other people. Even when I do interviews, podcasts, it's all about, yes, I have lived an extraordinary life. A lot of it is because I live out of a planner. I have goals. I have aspirations. Does Dan Severn need to work today? No, I don't. Why am I dressed up like Farmer Brown or Paul Bunyan or something like that? Because I'm out there and I was working in my orchard. I'm trimming up my fruit trees and stuff like that. I'll have Not today because it's a rainy day, but I'll have my grandsons. I should say my grandchildren because I have a granddaughter as well. I'll have them all out there helping me. I'll make a game out of how many limbs can you carry over to the burn pile, and so they'll be out there helping me drag all these little limbs because again I want them to understand you have to work. Everyone has to work.
Yes, sir.
There's no such word as free in this world. There isn't. And those that think that there is something that's called free are living in a very delusionary type world.
And that is absolutely true. We see it. I'm gonna just say it. You don't have to say anything on it. The culture of soft culture is grown quite a bit, and I'll say that, I think a lot of everything you just explained, if people are listening clearly, you're talking about mental toughness, and obviously the mind drives the body, but that mental toughness, dedicating yourself to a process, sticking to it, making adjustments along the way. But that mental toughness is, could we really boil down to how you competed in 3 different decades, over 100 matches, successful so many times? Is that mental?
Rob, I started my amateur wrestling career 7th grade, 1969.
Wow.
The fact that I've competed in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000, 2010, 2020 plus, that says 7 different decades. Now, I'm not 70. Now, again, I'm 65. I started my professional wrestling career at an older age than you did. I was at the time WWF's oldest rookie ever, I think at 48 years of age. Started my cage fight career at 37. You start at 37. You retire at 37. Yeah. That's when I started. I went for basically 20 years to that. But then I had this other couple year little layoff, and then another opportunity that came ahead. I could tell people that yes, I've retired from mixed martial arts now, unless they come back with some type of senior citizen type of program right there, where maybe they have new rules like don't pinching their air tubes that they're on oxygen as they walk around there with their little tank or something like that, and above all things, never ever squeeze the colostomy bag because You don't want to be ringside when that baby pops.
Turn into a literal shit show, huh?
Literally. No, but I use humor in that because I'm that senior citizen, and what's the biggest market in the United States? Senior citizen. There's more old people than there are young people. Young people are not having the number of children that their parents or their grandparents had or their great parents had. It's getting less and less and less. So it's
that time frame to have children is moving up more.
Yes,
before it wasn't too abnormal to see people.
More people are looking to try to get their careers. They're looking to try to get their careers established, things of that nature. There's a lot of things, but most people don't really have a plan. And I tell them, I go, it's an easy thing to do. Simply pull out a piece of paper, just a blank piece of paper, get yourself ink, pen, or pencil, and just write things down on a piece of paper. Having the goal is one aspect, but now you got to start writing all the various steps of how am I going to get to that goal. I know that what I'm doing today is going to be a madhouse. That's why, Rob, I tried to get this to be as early as possible this morning, because I have 2 different people that will be showing up today. And once I'm done here, I'll be on the phone calling a couple other people, because I'm hoping to have 4 or 5 different people here, because I'm inside my training facility, which I got back to Michigan from Arizona, got back to Michigan just within less than a week ago. But I've already been over to my summer college property just to bug bomb that before I open that on up. I'm just doing things to try to prepare it. But it's like it's all based on weather. If it's a beautiful day, I'm gonna be over there doing things because I have to be outside. A lot of stuff I have to do over there, but I'm here at my property. So I'm getting things refired up in here to where, the water's all getting turned back on. There's a lot of things that are going to be cleaned up. Okay, it's like things got to be touched up with a little paint, spit polish here. I'm hoping to be running a wrestling. If things go, and the way I'm hoping they're going to go, by next weekend, I'll be running not 1, 2, but I'll be doing 3 different types of clinics and or seminars at my location. I'll do something for amateur wrestling. But when it comes to amateur wrestling, I'll be doing 2 different levels. I'll do something aimed at towards kids. And I expect to have at least 1 or more of my grandsons inside there because my parents, my children, their parents know that I want my grandkids to grow up to be something of substance. I go, did I let you guys lounge around? No. I said, you guys had different types of jobs you had to do. And I go, I expect no less. I want the same thing because you see kids they walk around with their cell phone. They have these tablets. They have all these electronics. We have the most physically inept generation that is coming up. I can break most of this generation just by looking at them.
Yeah. No, sir, you're absolutely right. Me and Ricky talk about this kind of stuff in private all the time. The changing of the guard kind of stuff.
You don't keep it private. You need to make this more public. I put together, just last weekend. I was at a martial arts event, and the gentleman ahead of time, he goes, Dan, there's a lot of people that they really like what you teach and how you teach. They would like to do something private. He says, because I go there, and I typically would do like a 45-minute. He has people set up for these 45-minute blocks just to give them a little sampling of what they do. He goes, I'd like to, on top of your normal 45-minute block, he goes, would you be willing to do a 3-hour segment that you give them a certificate for? And I pondered this for a little bit, and I thought about it. I going, I don't give away certificates very easily because it's my name. It's like when you look at a lot of the martial arts schools, I refer to a lot of them, not all of them, but there's a lot of them that fall into the category of what I refer to as the McDojos.
McDojos, yep.
McDojos.
Yeah.
Yep.
As long as you keep showing up, as long as you keep paying your monthly dues, they'll keep promoting you from your white to your white with 1 stripe to the pink, the purple, the reds, the blues, the blacks. I mean, they'll keep promoting you. And what is your real ability? 0, nothing. Knowing that this was going to be a certificate that I'm going to hand out that's going to have my name on it, saying that I believe in you because of whatever it is on this. I put together what I call, because I asked myself, is this something that you're going to want to do each year for a 3-hour? He goes, well, if you don't mind. He goes, yes. He says, as long as you can switch it up. I go, sure. I can I make this happen? Sure, I can. And I'm like going, what's the first foundation you have to have? You have to have some kind of physical ability. So I put together a Dan Severn physical fitness outline. And I had all these things that I wrote down of exercises, stretches, and kind of like gymnastic things that you should be able to do. But if either one of you can remember back to any kind of like a family reunion, doing like piggyback rides, 3-man legged race, wheelbarrows, things of that nature, I go, this is the kind of stuff I had because you were going to be paired with one other individual that you want to keep somewhere around your exact same size because you're going to be utilizing that same person because you are going to do a piggyback to where they're going to jump on your back. But again, I'm doing this grappling style to where you don't hold them. You literally, when they jump on your back, they'll have their triceps on top of your shoulders. Boom, just hold like just like this. Their hands don't wrap around your neck. They're not hold like this. They just hold like this, and their thighs pitch just above your hips. So again, that actually teaches you kind of like grappling how you're supposed to utilize your body. And you have so there's the horse and then there's the jockey. So the jockey jumps up there, triceps, leg side. He has to hold himself with just that gripping power. And then the horse, basically, he just takes you down as fast, as safely and as fast as possible down the full length of this to where they switch around and the other guy carries on my back. But to do like a piggyback, but to do then a wheelbarrow, to do again a fireman's carry, where you just fireman's carry one guy over your shoulder, you take him down, switch, get around. I put this list of I had. But then do it. Give me 20 jumping jacks. Give me 20 push-ups. Give me 20 sit-ups to where your partner holds your feet and counts out your repetition. Know that I put this list of roughly 25 to 30 things together, knowing that I will probably have 100% washout.
Yeah.
Because no one will be able to do it. Even myself, gosh, I don't even know if it's doing it. I know, Rob, we spoke about this yesterday, but this past winter has been my winter of healing because I had a total right hip replaced, but then double carpal tunnel. You can still see the scars on the two hands.
Bless you.
When it took place, because that was a little over, I think, just a little over 3 weeks ago. That I had that to where I can't do regular push-ups yet because of the way it feels, but I could do fist down push-ups. So for whatever reason, palms out, to the bottom, but fist down. What I was asking of these folks, I could do all of this up until prior to me having my surgeries.
Right.
Now my goal is from that 1 year mark. I'll be right back to doing this. And then it'll be Dan Severn at 66 years of age that can do all this that I am asking of all these people that are probably anywhere from their, I'll say, 18 years to 40 years of age. So again, I'm thinking, I'm not asking more of you than I'm asking of myself, but I'm also handicapping myself because I fall in that senior citizen type category.
Right.
But I want to do more things with senior citizens because what do you see most older people doing other than sit around?
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. And we know if anybody who's got loving old people in your life, if you've seen some that sit still, ailments tend to come in sooner. The ones that stay active, well, they get better mileage. And just respectfully to all of that stuff.
My 94-year-old mother-in-law, it will be outside in the yard working on her flower bed.
I know this. My grandma's 93 and still doing the same thing. So shout out to the grandmas that don't stop. And that's exactly right. That's exactly right, Dan. I nailed it. Now I have to ask though, because you talked about a couple of guys that I have to go back and bring up because of modern things. You're talking about, where you're at right now. 65, dude, I can still do push-ups.
Okay, 65 until June, where again it charges to 66 here. So I'm getting closer to being 66. So it's like, because I have to start thinking about, well, at what point in time do I want to start taking Social Security and stuff like this? So
hey, well, with that being said, I'm still giving you credit for 65 laps because in racing you don't go you're 65 and 5/8 around. You got to go all the way around for it to count. So I'm not going to age you any further than you need to be. We hope to get you all the way to the however many numbers you want. But the point is
125.
125. There we go.
That's the goal. 125.
There we go. You heard it, everybody. We're going to rock it with Dan all the way to 125.
Okay. But to finish off that. But at 125, my life will be taken tragically and suddenly by a jealous husband. That's my goal. Okay. Okay. Think about that, Rick and Rob. Think about that. 125, and now, granted, she will be a much younger woman. Okay?
well, like you said, you're already kind of. I see what you're doing, Dan. You're a man of a strategy. I just seen all that workout stuff. You're whittling out the field. You're finding the right opponent. I see what you're doing. But I like that, sir. Now, like you said, in modern times, you're still putting in effort. You're still setting the bar for yourself. You're still setting goals, right? And one of those. You talked about two huge guys that were, part of your world, part
Yep.
of our world, part of everybody's world in two different ways. Huge icons. Al Snow. What does everybody want? What does everybody need?
Oh,
And so Al, and then
Al was
obviously you got
so funny. And again, to think about that, coming out with a mannequin's head. That I mean, early on, if you go back and do this, he used to take coaching from the head. He's like, oh, but then they started going out there like, what does everybody want? What does everybody need? I mean, he is still having the time of his life by just carrying out a mannequin's head.
and that's it. And so I want to bridge two different guys. I know one's your friend, one was a competitor, possibly now friends, because I seen a picture of you and Mr. Coleman, Mark Coleman, and later years hanging out.
I've got no axes to grind with any of my past opponents. I've tried to help Mark on several occasions to try to do things, but literally, I'll get something set up for him to do an appearance, something like that. I'm getting paid more, and then he calls him up and he'll go in and take less. I'm thinking, wow. I go, why don't you just let my people handle your negotiations there for you there, Mark? Because I've got good people that are doing things for me. They they learn from me, and now I just let them represent. I'll just let them know about different things, or their way. Like again, this computer age. I'm a dinosaur. I know enough just to get myself in trouble, but I have to surround myself with better young people that know how to get these what's the word I'm looking for algorithms and things of that nature to get more viewership and things of that nature. So there's all kinds of stuff that's there that I don't understand, but surround yourself with people that do, and if every now and then they could kind of break it down a little bit or dummy it down so they could explain it to me, because we live in an era of you got electronics strapped on everybody, whether it's off of I like these days off of laptops, because I took a typing class in high school. I don't even know if high schools even offer typing classes. Now the funny part is when I see people grab that cell phone and they got both thumbs going like 100 miles an hour, that going, where did they learn this class? Where's this class at? This double digit thumb typing class. I go, my son could drive down the road and literally he won't even look down. He's driving down the road and he just knows where every key is at, and his thumb is texting away. And I'm like going, son, I'm impressed the fact that you could text, you could do all this kind of stuff with this little piece of I like to call it machine read, but it's technology. I go, and yet you forget to take the garbage out, huh? I still had to hit him with the dad card,
Hey, the dad card, the dad card never fades. Shout out to all the dads in the world, self included. Every man in this room's a dad, so what's up? Now, just real quick, going like you said, you're pushing yourself in this phase of your life, but the two icons I just mentioned previous, they did some pretty heroic stuff, and I just wanted to get your take. A few years ago, Mr. Al Snow saved a drowning person, or a person in the process of drowning. They didn't drown because he saved them. Yeah. And he got in there, did real life hero. I'll just say it, real life hero shit. And then Mark, just his recent escapade of playing, sudden firefighter, save the parents.
Yep.
I mean, you got to be pretty proud of not just yourself, but your peers, your generation, the people you've hung out with, the people you've competed against. I mean, like you said, physically, mentally, this is not usual circumstances of humankind. Could you just go into like having friends like that?
Yeah, no, it speaks volumes though. Just again, what Mark did and what L did. I mean, I'll be pretty blunt about this. I'll never save anybody swimming wise, because Dan Severn is like throwing a rock in the water. If I go in that water, I'm going to the bottom. Okay. Hopefully I can hold my breath long enough while I can walk to shore. So that's because funny story that when again, this will be back, decades back, probably around that 1976, when the Olympic Training Center first opened up in Colorado Springs. It used to be a military base. It's now this very a fluid, technology-wise Olympic Training Center. But back then, it was a military base that just slowly got opened up to where they would just take different rooms and they just knock down walls and then throw it on a mat. And then there's your wrestling room. But I remember going back then, they were doing underwater submersive weight testing, whereas fat floats and muscle is dense, it sinks. And literally at the time, there were a couple of different heavyweights that weighed in excess of 400 pounds that they were weighing, that literally I outweighed in the underwater submersive type of thing because I had more density of muscle, stuff like that. So literally I just went, I sunk to the bottom, and where they floated more, but it was like going, they just said, they're like, you're, because I should tell, I wasn't married at the time. I probably told my girlfriend, I'm the densest person that they ever tested. I'm thinking, I don't know if that meant mentally speaking.
No,
No,
and-
not
and-
that.
No, not at all. And I think, sir, when you really think about all that effort you put in, like you said, all that work in the training, and then starting from young, that farm life, that's crazy. I'm sorry to bring this to you, but the reason why I even watched the UFC in the first place is I had wonderful grandparents. One of those grandparents, obviously my grandpa. My grandpa grew up on a farm, similar story to you. Also a negative buoyant man. I haven't met another negative buoyant man till you just told this story. So now I can't wait to go tell him, like, hey, all this stuff that you just said. So I really thank you for that story.
No, it's we don't. The United States is the only country where again we push our elders off to the side. We put them into homes. Most other countries, those elders are brought into the home. They're the centerpiece of the home because you can learn from them. I have, again, as I stated earlier, I have some letters from my grandmother. I know I have some audio of her because I had the cassette recorder at the time, and I made a few different audios where I just asked her a few different questions. Those are things that I need to get turned over into more modern because that stuff that those cassette tapes, stuff like that, they'll eventually just disintegrate. So there's stuff that I have on 8-track and other things that were that I need to get more modernized to where it's in this digital era, just so that I can preserve that for my kids, grandkids, and the next couple of generations.
And
Gotcha.
respect to that, and something, and bending that into your quest. And you were talking about the Olympics a little while ago, but things changing but staying the same. The great sport of wrestling, the oldest sport we know, and obviously centerpiece of the Olympics. Now the Olympics, it's prestige, where athletes go from it, very different than just a couple of decades ago. Just like everything else, do you still see the Olympics as a farm or a pathway for this era of combat sport athletes, or is it just kind of its own thing now?
Well, no, I mean it's still its own entity, but the opportunities. Well, you got to look at wrestlers have a new opportunity. Because again, just to be the state a fact. I don't know who did it, but it was shared through social media that they looked at all the various current and are pecking order of like the top 5 or top 10 people per weight class. What was their sport of origin, where they started from? Were they a jiu-jitsu practitioner? Were they a boxer, kickboxer, amateur wrestler? Like I said, judo, jiu-jitsu, the whole 9 yards. So, I mean, and what they're seeing right now is that the rated background athlete is the amateur wrestler. And I've been asked time again, like, why do you think that is? I go, well, amateur wrestling, it's not the complete form that an athlete needs. They need striking ability. Again, striking, whether that's with your hands, knees, elbows, feet. There's some type of a striking ability you have, along with the grappling ability. The sport of wrestling, when you achieve a certain level of success, it just simply means you have that work ethic, that you will apply yourself to something, and you're going to hold yourself to a little bit higher standard than somebody else. So a lot of times people just look at their peers, and this is where you want to be. So it's when you do something even beyond that. You know,
Right.
I've
when you do stuff beyond that, you end up here, right, Dan? You end up in the UFC
well,
Hall of Fame,
you do, and
right?
that's where inside my training facility here, I've got I forget how many different Hall of Fames that I'm in now. It's easily 30 plus.
That's
And
beautiful.
which a few of them really mean a whole lot more to me than others. But again, it's kind of cool that people recognize you. But then having however many different championship belts and stuff like that I have
Right.
accredited. But then if you were to see inside my training facility, because I know just over the course of the summer, I'm going to be changing up the format because it's almost like a little bit of a mini museum. Because I do have different pictures and stuff like that are on the wall, but what two gentlemen did for me one day was I had this shelving unit I was putting in because I was going to be putting other stuff up there for to try to inspire people. But what they did was they put up all of my trophies.
Yeah.
Nice.
And again, they like why is all this stuff just sitting in a box? I go because I don't have time to mess with it yet. Maybe somewhere later in life when I'm hitting, maybe in my mid-90s. At that point, I'll start bothering to worry about this, that, the whole 9 yards. And by then, I'll be teaching cane techniques, walker techniques, how to use that walkers and that cane is not just for just getting your around mobile. It's also a weapon if you know how to wield it like a samurai warrior.
Hey, you teach the ankle pick with the cane, the push cane,
all that stuff. I mean, honestly, we might be laughing comically, but there is a gentleman for the longest time that he was known as the cane master, and he showed techniques. And I happened to be at a martial arts event. I had just concluded with my portion, and as I walked back off, they were making this announcement. He was about to come up on the same mat and teach, and I just sat there and watched it for a little bit. I'm like, and as I heard him speak stuff like that, I mean, I was just kind of mesmerized. I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to be rocking a cane here one day. And I want to learn some of these same techniques. So I walked out onto the mat and I said, I apologize for intruding upon your class. I just wanted you to know, but I also want all these other students to know that I really like with what you're showing. And one day I will be rocking that cane, hopefully not because I need it, but knowing that as I walk around, who are people going to attack? They're going to attack more the feeble type of thing right there. But if you know that you can wield that cane around to where now you have a weapon in your hand, you got something else going for you. And again, it's something that you can walk right past any type of security with because it's just a nice old man. He's got his cane because he needs it. Really now.
Until those people didn't do their research and realized that was the beast in their face.
Well, I don't know if you can see this, but this is the cane that I used prior to having my hip. Now, again, I just happened to be on my property, and I just found a branch that had a certain crook into it. So there's nothing pretty about this here whatsoever. I saw it, and I kept thinking, well, okay, I'll cut up here to where I have a handle, and I go. It used to be, it was a lot longer, but I go, you only get one chance to cut it to the right length. So it's kind of like going, well, it was a little bit long, a little bit high. It's like I cut it down a little bit till I got to it. Okay, perfect. Do I have to do anything more? To where I will mount this up on the wall because I don't need it now, but I'll mount it up on the wall, knowing that maybe in another 20, 30 years, I might need it again.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe, or just simply maybe I just want to be styling and profile, just waltzing around there towards like people see, man, that's one gnarly looking cane that you have right there. And I go, really? Or is it just the fact that I know that I have something I can utilize as self-defense? Because it has a few little knots, stuff like that onto it that they would hurt quite a bit if you just popped them just the right way.
Yeah.
My grandpa has a term for that. He calls it the equalizer.
There you go. There you go.
Now, sorry to bring this back to wrestling because so much of your story is wrestling, but I want to bring you into the right now, right? UFC hottest person on the roster wrestling wise, all the credentials, all the love. Bo Nickel. I know you know his name. I know you know his stuff.
Yeah, he's a product from University of Pennsylvania.
Yep.
Yes, sir. In your eyes, do you see Bo Nickel as the new American wrestling chosen one?
Well, you're going to see a lot come out of Mississippi, that university. It's something that I've been trying to. I'm working on for Arizona State University. I've been working on it for a few years now. It's just trying to get the people on board to realize when you look at the history of mixed martial arts, what state has produced more UFC champions or UFC place finishers, or not even just pertain just to UFC, but then look at Bellator and all these other MMA companies on top of that.
I know the answer.
What university? I know you do right there, but we'll throw this to Ricky here real quick. What university has produced more place finishers or champions than any other state or university?
Is it Penn State?
Arizona State University. Arizona State University. For now, I guarantee you, Penn State is going to surpass it because they have so many good things in place here for right now. But previously, right now, Arizona State is that program. They had the Sunkiss freestyle wrestling program, a Greco-Roman program that is still with it. And you're looking at 1976. That was one of the reasons why I signed with Arizona State. I made it known to all these various college coaches that I will sign with the program that has the best of both worlds. During my college season, I want the best program and be a part of it. But when my college season comes to an end, I want to be able to do my freestyle Greco-Roman reign, knowing that the United States is the only country that does. We talked about this earlier. Why does the United States only get a very few medals in first place? Is because the United States does folk style wrestling, that does college style wrestling, and by the time you graduate college, you're 21, 22. You look at the only chances that you have to represent your country is through freestyle Greco, and so you maybe for the first time at 21, 22, you're doing freestyle Greco. Whereas all the rest of these countries, they started you off at 4 or 5 doing freestyle and Greco-Roman. So it's just a learning curve. I mean, the United States should have been doing freestyle Greco all along, but for whatever reasons, it is what it is. That's what I tell people, that I was forward thinking because I said my freshman year I'm doing high school wrestling style, but I jumped into freestyle. By my sophomore year, I'm doing freestyle. I'm doing the folk style during the season. Then I had a Greco-Roman. So I had 3 different disciplines. But then you look at my freshman year in college, I took a weightlifting class. So I knew that I knew how to design programs for the sport of wrestling. I took a nutrition class knowing that everything I put in my body was going to make me the ultimate athlete. I took a judo class, so I knew how to work my legs and feet, stuff like that. For foot sweeps, so like an extension of my arms. So again, I've got story after story after story of what I could go into, because my life has been nothing but a storybook, and knowing that I just tried different things. Tough man's one thing. My first time ever going to a judo tournament, it looked like this barbarian animal, and just so many different things of that nature.
And that's where I kind of drawing the comparison sometimes when I'm watching modern athletes, and honestly, when I see Bo Nickel and I see how dominant his wrestling is, and I remember the early days of you applying wrestling craft to guys that weren't, maybe they knew how to wrestle a little bit, but it wasn't even in the same category. When we look at Bo's style and how he doesn't really get into the striking, he puts people on the mat there. It's impossible for them to even do anything back. It really, really genuinely looks like just kind of shades of the Beast, just decades later, where wrestling obviously is the focus. That's what you're from. You respect the other pieces of the fight game, but like you said, neutralizing their techniques, applying all of yours. Your techniques are just coming on. Yeah. There's most of them left. Do you, when you watch someone like that, do you see like a little bit of yourself?
Yeah, well, I pay homage to the fact that they come from my same love of the sport, from amateur wrestling. John Jones, throw that name in the mix there as well. A lot of people don't understand John Jones comes from an amateur wrestling background.
Mhm.
Yet, has he ever really displayed amateur wrestling ability yet in any of his matches? I mean, he's won all kinds of matches through some incredible knockouts and stuff of that nature. You know, he's spinning back fists, spinning back elbows. So very, very much an innovator through his style there. Uh, John Jones' only real competition is himself because he tends to get himself into trouble. So again, that's where if John Jones can get over some of the things that he gets himself into, he's still a force to be reckoned with even now. So
Yeah.
I just hope
Absolutely.
he gets. I've never met him. Again, I'm not here to speak poorly about anyone, but I mean he's an incredible athlete that has incredible gifts.
Yeah.
He just needs to surround himself with the right kind of people. But that's everything that we talked about from the very beginning of this interview. If you are not happy in the place that you are at, maybe you need to change some of the people that you hang out with. Now, again, I'm going to relate this to the Rocky movies. There's been lots of the Rocky movies that took place. I've watched them all, but I like the very first Rocky movie ever for two different reasons. In that, first off, he knows he can't beat the champ, but nobody has ever gone the distance with the champ. So he simply wants to know that when that final bell rings, he wants to know that he's still standing, and win or lose, he will be somebody. And that was the whole thing. He's not going to win or whatever, but he'll be somebody. So I like that. But also in that first Rocky one, he always he kept seeing Rocky with, you know, he's got his little thug little hat on, he's got his little leather jacket on, and he always sees like these street urchin type kids that are out there hanging by the burning barrel, the street corner, and they're smoking their cigarettes. They, you know, like, hey, you kids should be smoking and stuff like that. It will lead you to bad things. He goes, you stay in school, say, you know, he goes, he goes, you're going to turn out to be a bunch of yo-yos. If you, he goes, he says, you gotta hang out with better people. If you want to be yo-yos, just hang out with a bunch of other yo-yos, and you'll be a yo-yo. He says, you gotta hang out with. So again, there were a couple of things that a lot of people might have watched that movie and missed that altogether, but I caught that and thinking, wow, that's actually a play on life, because you really are a product of who you hang out with.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. That is very, very true. Use a phrase for that, right? The birds of a feather flock together type of expression, and it's very, very, very true. I totally agree with you very much, and I appreciate you, you know, bringing that up and saying those things. Now, I I can't go any further until I talk about this one topic, because this is a special one for me. I'm going to bring it up right now. Super Brawl 8, 1998, Honolulu, Hawaii, the Blaisdell Arena. The first time I got to see you kick ass in live action. Now I got
Again,
the
I know I've been there for a couple different times, so because that was for the gentleman was T.J. Thompson,
that is right.
and he ran those events. So you have to tell me who I fought, because do I remember? No.
Well, you fought a gentleman with the last name of Franco, and
Okay.
I'll pull up the entire the record there.
Yeah, 101 wins, Dan. Some of them get blurred every now and
No,
again.
no, I mean, but you know, as I say that I live out of a planner, but life for me is it's like I have some people that are showing up here shortly, to where one is going to be just going through scrapbooks, because
Right.
I've got, I don't know, I got 30 plus scrapbooks, but I got to the point I got too busy. I stopped doing scrapbooks. I then just started laying all these articles, news articles, magazines in boxes. So now I also have another half a dozen or more boxes. That's like an archaeological dig. So they're going to be going through there, knowing that as you take them out, you got to put them right back in there, because at some point in time, I have a couple of different movie groups that are looking at doing some things there with me as well, because they've seen some of my interviews and they're intrigued. They've heard different little tidbits that have come out, because I mean, I did one day in high school where I did 17 matches in one day.
Jeez.
And they thought that they were impressed with that. But then I go, why? I go, anyone can have a good day. Again, that was
they could have that good.
Okay, but when I say 17 matches a day, I mean, just to give you like the prayer, I was in high school. I was a high school junior at the time. And I went my age group was 18 years and younger. And I did 3 weight classes, 198, 220 heavyweight. So I had to weigh at least 198 because you can't weigh over. But at the time, they allowed you to do that. But then I also went in the open age category, which is anything over 18 years of age. So now I'm going up against college wrestlers, people who are out of college, being the coaches, things of that nature. So in one day, I went 2 different age groups, 6 different weight classes. Most high school gymnasiums only hold 3 mats. So I could be on mat number 1, wrestling, and they'll be calling me on deck at mat number 2, and in the hole on mat number 3. And the moment that your match comes up, they'll simply say, Dan Severn must report, and then they start a stopwatch. You have 5 minutes. If you don't report within that 5 minutes, you're automatically disqualified. So I could be on mat number 1, and they're like, Dan Severn must report on mat number 2. So I have to finish my opponent off quickly at mat number 1, and then grab my water bottle, my towel, my little duffel bag, as I wipe it down, take a swing to go to mat number 2, knowing that I'm in the hole on mat number 3, because these 3 weight classes are all back to back to back. So one day, again, 2 age groups, 6 different weight classes, 17 matches later, and I mean, I had coaches that were running to the payphones. Again, payphones. Well, people are going to have to look up what's a payphone. Okay, I've never heard of the term payphone before. Look up. I think they have the Smithsonian Institute. They have the payphone there, but yeah. Maybe we're going there like, there's this high school kid, and this is what he's doing here thus far. And they go, and he's not just beating people, he's pitting people left and right. Because I held quite a few different national records for most pins, most consecutive pins, the whole 9 yards, to where even, see, a lot of people, they're impressed with the fact that I did 17 matches in one day. Well, again, is that more impressive, or is the fact that in my last 2 years, my junior and senior year, I went 100-0.
Is
that
needs
more
to be
impressive?
said.
Or in my junior year, I pinned everybody but one person.
Yeah.
And so, what is Dan Severn's goal in my senior year? I must pin everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, I already told you, senior year, I went 100-0. I pinned everyone my junior year except for one person. My senior year, I pinned everyone. Now I'm walking out for my very last match of my high school career. Now again, nobody knows what Dan Severn's goals are. My goal is that when I walk on this mat, I must win, I must pin, I must do it all under 1 minute. Because my previous year, in my junior year, I pinned my opponent just over 1 minute. So this year, I have to up the ante to me. No one else do this. My opponent did not know the tsunami that was about to hit him, because, again, he's undefeated. Well, 48 seconds later, I achieved my goal.
Yeah.
So again, is that not a movie? How can you go an entire season and pitting everybody? Because you got to get sick somewhere along the way. You got to have a bad day, an off day somewhere along the way. How does someone rise up? And yet I did this, but knowing that my freshman year, having a goal of, I wanted to be the first freshman to ever make varsity. And when you're a freshman, you're like low man on the totem pole. Going up against sophomores, juniors, and seniors makes a world difference, because 1, 2, 3 years of physical maturity and all the experience, worlds of difference. And I made I did make varsity, but I made varsity at the heavyweight. I tried my weight class. I basically I weighed about 165 pounds. Most wrestlers we lose some weight, so I was down to 155-pound class, and I got beat. Then I went up to the next weight, got beat a little bit worse. Next weight class got beat even worse yet. To where literally my high school wrestling coach was like, man, this kid's on a suicide mission. To where the last person to challenge is the heavyweight, and he probably should have never allowed it to happen because I only weigh 155 pounds. And he's like, he looks like his bonehead determined. Let him go out there and get destroyed one more time. He's been destroyed all this time. Well, give him one more chance to get destroyed again. I go out there and somehow he trips, he falls down. The heavyweight does, and I fall on top of him. I pin him. So I make varsity, but it opens up a whole new set of obstacles because in order to wrestle heavyweight at this time period, you had to weigh a minimum of 175 pounds. I weigh 155. I have a picture of me wearing the 155-pound uniform, and I'm standing next to my coach. I still remember my very first. Well, again, in order to make weight, I had to weigh 175, but back then you could weigh in fully dressed. See, today's era, you have to wrestle with, you have to show up in just a pair of underwear or your singlet just pulled out so they can look at your skin, make sure you don't have any kind of ringworm or any kind of diseases on your skin. And then after you pass inspection, and then you could step on the scales with your skivvies or entirely naked or whatever. But back then, you could weigh in fully dressed. Shoes on, coat on. I had shoes on, coat on, fully dressed. I had cans of pop in all my pockets. And I weighed the minimum that you had to weigh. Because even then, the referee's looking at it. My coach, I go, the rule book says. And again, did I set the world on fire my very first match? No. I mean, I got destroyed my very first match. But I kept coming back again and again and again.
Yeah. Well, that mentality, Dan, you talk about writing things down. You talk about listening to what people are saying. And I wrote something down. I wrote a phrase that you said earlier when we started recording. And every story you tell, like this phrase just keeps popping up. And I wrote down moving out of necessity. It seems like that's just not the Dan Severn way, but the Severn family way. And is that just how you see things now? Being that competitive when you were growing up, being that competitive in high school, being that competitive through your MMA career, through your professional wrestling career, how do you still have that competitive drive now that you may be retired from those? What are you still competing with?
I'm only in competition really with myself.
Right.
That's what it is. I mean, if I want to sit around and do nothing, I could sit around and do nothing, but I would be bored out of my mind.
Right.
I like what I do, so I really don't look upon it as work. Like, this morning I'm out there. I'm here. Yeah, this okay. I don't have the loppy shears are still outside in my garden. Here's just a little. I keep this in my back pocket because this is just to knock off all the little limbs. But then I got the big loppy shears to knock off the bigger limbs. Look at how raggedy these old gloves are here right now. It's like I can afford new gloves, but it's kind of going, there's something about when you wear a certain wear, just throw a little duct tape around there. Put that. It's good to wear. I think these gloves are more than 50% duct tape now that hold them together. But the ironic part is, I could probably auction this pair of Dan Severn work gloves, sweat equity endorsed. And I could probably get $100 out of them, which would buy me another 20 pair of work gloves. But I could get that letter of authenticity. These are original Dan Severn work gloves, and he's used them for probably the last half a dozen or more years because I just don't simply just throw them away because they have one little hole into them. It's like, keep going.
I think there'd be a great commercial right there for that. The Dan Severn work gloves, better work ethic than you'll ever have. Buy them today.
Okay, will you wear them out or will they wear you out? There you go.
There's another tagline. Boom.
No, I get, but it's like, you guys see, I have a good sense of humor. And that's where a lot of people, some people just have bad attitudes. And a lot of times the bad attitude is just because of their own environment that they created. If you don't like where you're at, start making some changes. That's all you have to do. And again, you can't do it all in one day. It's like I have my own bad days. Towards like, man, today I should never even got out of bed because this happened, that happened, the whole 9 yards. But it's like going, well, we all have to have these days. It's kind of like it's your test in life. It's as I call it, it's metallurgy 101. Are you made out of a cheap alloy, or are you tungsten steel? I mean, you're high grade, you're diamond. See, everyone's a diamond in the rough. It's just how much do you have to keep compressing it in order to get it to that result of being that diamond?
And there you go, through a process of reinventing and repurposing yourself, rising to the challenge through those two techniques over and over and over again. You, Mr. Severn, you compressed and comprised a diamond of a life, a diamond of a story. I do want
having goals, write them down. Again,
write them go.
But it's like what I'm trying to get achieved here. It's just I have to write things down, and then once I write them down, I erase them. That's why you see the big old eraser at the top there. And I go through a lot of erasers to where I throw that one off, throw the next one on top, because I'll once a task is completed, it's done. Do I remember? Well, nope. It's like I just move on to the next thing. I don't need to dwell in the past on those kind of things. Other aspects, well, maybe on investments or other things. Yeah, it's good to pay a little bit more attention as to you don't want to be too frivolous as you make other types of investments, things of that nature. Just investments in people. Even in my training facility, I've had athletes that have stayed here because I told you I've got two different little mini dorm type areas. And sometimes these athletes will get behind in their dues, their monthly dues. And I'll simply say to them, I go, you can either pay me, or if you like, I'll let you do some sweat equity with me. And meaning you're going to do some work, whether it's cleaning, painting, or just yard work, trimming the hedge, raking up leaves, taking out limbs, things of that nature, sweat equity. And as they're starting to work, I see them on this device. I go, I'm sorry. I go, you're working for me right now. You're not on a cell phone. You're working for me right now. I go, put that in your car or put that in my training facility. I go, I'm not here to be a slave driver or something like that, but you can't do this at work to keep talking to your girlfriend or to talk to your mommy or daddy or something like that. You're on my time, my dime, because you are poor with your money, and I offered up this opportunity for you to put in a day's worth of sweat equity, and at that time it was at a day rate of $10 an hour. But again, because I have my training facility's been shut down for the last 3 years, so I haven't had no athletes here. At that time, for a general laborer with no skill sets whatsoever. Again, I just had to show them, okay, what end of the lopping shears to hold, or what end of the rake to use. A rake, a wheelbarrow, helping to trim this or rake up that. It was not rocket science. Or okay, now we're burning all this debris that's in the back, because I can't just have the power just get bigger. You have to burn it out. So try not to fall into the fire. I mean, just some basic type of rules I just had to come up there. But literally towards the end of the day, they're like, they would actually say, Dad, you're like a slave driver. I go, what? Because I go, I'm working right beside you, aren't I? He's like, well, yeah. I go, and you probably see I'm doing a lot more than what you are, aren't I? And they're like, well, yeah. And I go, but they're like, but you just seem like you're like a driven man. No, I go, I want to get the job done. I'm not here to be a time waster. If I can get this job done in an hour, I'd rather get it done to where I can go on and do some other things. I don't want to sit there and let procrastinate. I'm not going to be a clock watcher, because there are people that get paid by the hour that become clock watchers. I like to simply know that pay me by the job, because I'm going to knock that job off and I'm going to get the next job done. But then what came down to is like some of these athletes said, Dan, they're like, I'd rather just pay you the money than the work for you. And I go, guess what? I would rather you pay the money than work beside me, because your work ethic sucks. Maybe that's why you're not moving that well along in your professional wrestling career, or your mixed martial arts career, or your submission grappling career, or your amateur wrestling career, because your work ethic outside of this training facility is basically the same way as it is inside this training facility. And if you do something in a very lackadaisical type of way, how can you expect to get positive results?
You really can't.
Again,
You really
you
can't.
get out of life what you put into it. You're going to get out of what your job, what you get into it. I mean, there's sometimes there's different circumstances that happen where somebody who's a higher up might be showing favoritism and they advance someone over you. I mean, which is, to me, that's wrong. But and most time, most people, they control their own destiny, and now the destiny is, you got technology here at your fingertips to where you can create things. It's kind of like I'm doing this right now. I did all kinds of stuff before doing this podcast interview, and then now I've got people that are coming here to where I'm looking at future things. I got to do a little bit more clean up, spruce it up here to make the place a little bit more spit and polish here, just so it looks a little bit nicer than what it does.
Well, speaking of that, for the people not keeping up, I don't know how you could not. You're not only still doing all the things you're doing, but you have bridged over into modern entertainment, modern content, because you and the awesome Don Fry, great podcast, Toxic Masculinity, which is hilarious and great, and you guys do good stuff there. And
it's funny because Don came up with the name.
That's perfect.
I give a full kudos for coming up with that name. I go, what exactly does that mean there, Don? Toxic masculinity. I go, toxic is not exactly good. He goes, well, he says, Severn, he says, we're irrelevant now. He says, because we're men. And I go, oh, we're okay. Because we got this whole new woke era that people don't know what they are. They don't know if they're a man, and they don't know if they're a woman. I mean, the funny part, because when we were talking about this, but then when you look at a lot of these new interviews, when you have our Senate and the House, when they're cross-examining each other, and they've got them behind where they're being interviewed, to ask them, what's the definition of a woman? What's the definition of a man? And you have our leadership that don't even know what a man or a woman is. I'm thinking, oh my God, and you're leading our country, and you don't even know what a man or a woman is. I go, get out. It's easy. I mean, there is only a man and there's only a woman. Now, there are people that way before this whole woke movement, there are people that are gay. Got no problem with them. If that's what floats your boat, live in your world. Try to be happy. I simply know that if you have a deserted island and you put, a million gay people on one deserted island and everybody else on this other island, in roughly 100 years from now, you're going to find a deserted island. Why?
and
Why? Because if you're of the same sex, you're not reproducing. So thus, you need a man and you need a woman.
ta-da. Well, I appreciate that one, and that's exactly the kind of content and good points of view. Some just straight up, dude. Come on, get it together. Listen to the OGs; they got great stuff to tell you. I agree with literally all the stuff they say all the time. So check out Mr. Fry and Mr. Severn's Toxic Masculinity podcast. It's awesome. Yeah. Now I'm glad that you brought up the concept of islands. Because once again, that's where I met you, on the island of Hawaii, on Honolulu, Hawaii. And I'm not going to get into your match per se, because I know you also fought in Guam, and you fought in Japan, also technically an island and a nation. And you and this and that and this and that. I mean, sir, I know the list is long, over 100 plus matches, over 100 victories. Can you give us just a couple of your favorite venues or places that you ever fought?
Well, I mean, no, I'll just, again, as you just brought that up, there'll be different times when I've been maybe under the weather, or certain things that have happened. And I'll regale two quick back-to-back stories. Then guys, I really do need to wrap it up, because I got to be in preparation. But
yes,
in that, I remember being in Brazil at one point in time, to where my opponent changed 3 different times in 24 hours. Whoever I was supposed to be going against originally, something happened. And then they're like, okay, this will be the new guy, and like then that something fell through on that. All I know is that I'm part of the main event. I'm out and I'm in the cage, and now there's a group of athletes that are heading towards the cage. I go, well, I guess I'm gonna find out here pretty quickly because only one of them gets to walk inside the cage. So they cage side, one guy gets all out of his warm up stuff like that, and they sent him out because this was still during the bare knuckle action type days, so there were no gloves on. So he comes in. I was just happy that they made the announcement in both their language and also in English. So the moment that they said what his background was, I'm like, okay, I got to watch out for this, this, and this. And this is only, you're going to be honest, this is happening meters, seconds before the referee looks at you. Are you ready? Are you ready? Fight. And so again, I know what I'm doing. Okay, so again, that was one thing. But then there was like another time when I'm under the weather. I get on the plane anyway. I'm under the weather because the marquee says Dan Severn has to fight, somewhere the next day or so. So I get on the plane. I've got cough syrup. I got whatever else, nasal inhalers, all this. Put on the Vicks Vapor Rub just to try to open up my sinuses. But all I know is I'm kicking up all kinds of phlegm. And I'm just spitting up chunks of snot wads left and right. And I'm out in the cage, and the match it's sort of a boring match in the sense that I'm doing all my grappling skills to where he's trying to strike something. I clinch him, I take him down, and I start to go to like a striking type of ground and pound type of mode. But as I started to go the way that my it escalated heart, all that kind of stuff. I would start to go into like a coffee jag to where I literally had to push away from my opponent because I'm cough. I'm still looking at him as I'm coughing. And then as I'm coughing, I'm bringing up a big chunk of phlegm to where I get over to the edge of the cage. I'm going, poof, spinning right through the cage because I don't want to step on this big old slop. That's not slogger type of thing right there. I don't want to slip on it. I don't know if my shoe will stick to it and I can't get my foot loose, or I'm like a banana peel, slip and slide. But I'm doing this not just once or twice. I'm doing this like half the where now the crowd is getting angry that I'm not finishing this opponent off. And I go to one jag, I do a spit through, and as I turn back to look at my opponent, I hear, I go, what the world was that? And I turn around and I look back in the direction of the noise, and I got some dude throwing long neck beer bottles at me.
Oh,
I'm in a cage, and it literally hits the cage wall and just it bounces right back off it. I'm like, you son of a bitch. And I'm like, and right there, I'm like, poof! I spit the biggest slobber knocker that I mean, it's sailing through the air. I don't know. I know it probably didn't reach him. I just hope it didn't knock out anyone else in between point A and point B. That I felt sorry. If it could have, I would like to have hit it right dead center in the forehead. I'm thinking, you son of a bitch. I'm out here. I'm not feeling good. I'm trying to fight this guy. I'm going into coffee jags. I'm knocking out. I'm spitting out snot balls left and right. All I know is that I ended up winning. I kept taking my little nasal, this, that, no, my little home remedies, and then just moved on. But again, I don't remember who I was fighting at the time. It's just one of those things that I remember just going into these coffee jags and spit loogies to the fence, try not to hit anyone, but just trying to spit right down where the floor is right there, but not wanting to be on the floor of the cage, either to where I step in it and slip on it or whatever, or that kind of thing.
Right. Well, Dan, thank you so much for all of these wonderful stories. That was a gem, honestly. The Dan Severn literal slobber knocker story. I love this. I love
slobber
this.
Goober knocker, yeah.
Yeah. And I want to take what you just said, and because I really think it's applying to current state of MMA. The current state of MMA athletes are experiencing what I like to call just general disrespect from the fans, not understanding the sacrifice, the work, the when it might not be going good, and how all that stuff. And when you said that fan who threw the bottle at him, I don't know where he's is, but I'm still sticking fingers at him because that kind of stuff is not tolerated. It's not tolerated in our circles, not how we roll. We see fans like that, we check them. I just want to say, on behalf of all the fans, new, old, and still, all right, me, Ricky, everybody, thank you so much for your time, your wisdom, your sacrifices, your gifts to us in all these different eras of life. The lessons you just shared with us, that, like you said, it's recorded now, so hopefully these lessons can be learned to many, many, many people down the line. And in general, sir, on a personal level, thank you, not just for this interview, but being a solid example of what a man can do in a good way in multiple phases of his life, reinventing himself, repurposing himself, using dedication. Sir, it's been a pleasure, an honor, a privilege, just in every way, shape, or form. And that's my set of thank yous. I'm gonna bring it to Ricky because I know he's got a couple, and then I'll go to you, sir, to close it
Yeah,
out.
just thank you, like Rob said, and also just an honor to be able to meet you, to learn from you, to hear your stories. And yeah, that's going to stick in my head, that moving out of necessity, understanding what's in front of you, having that game plan, and then just attacking it, making no excuses and going after it is basically what I got from you. And I am definitely going to plug for you so you don't have to feel like you have to plug things for yourself, Dan. You can find Dan's book on Amazon, The Realest Guy in the Room, Life and Times of Dan Severn. You see him now, but get more of that personality, learn more from Dan himself through there. And then, like Rob said earlier, YouTube podcast, Dan and Dawn's Toxic Masculinity. It is great. They have a lot of great guests that I won't go in detail to. You'll have to go over there and check it out yourself. Thank you so much, Dan, for being with us.
The comedy there really is just between Don Fry and myself, because we got great chemistry. He was one of my athletes when I coached at Arizona State, lived with a couple of my younger brothers, so I know Don like that, much like that younger brother. So but Don Fry has been in probably more of the most viewed matches than anybody else, because he's had all these crazy slobber knocker type of matches. The number most viewed was him versus Takayama, where they basically have a collar tie on each other's head, and they're actually just punching each other in the face like they're playing a game of chicken. Like, okay, are you going to quit? Nope, I'm going to keep punching your face until you quit. And who won? The people, just because they witnessed something that they'll never ever see.
Voted the manliest fight in combat sports history. So there you go.
No, it was just crazy. We could do a whole hour on just that match alone, and just the both these guys and their genetic makeup, and what they did. But guys, just if you get a chance, post a couple of my social medias. But if people want to get contact with me, it's just be my email address, dan@dansevern.com. That's the best way of just my first name, Dan, the outside, dansevern.com. Severn, SEVERN, dan@dansevern.com. I would say go to my website, but my website is under construction. It's been under construction the last couple of years, but it's not been a priority to me. Well, it is a priority for me over the course of the summer to get it back up and functioning right, because again, I want to start putting more and more things out there to let people know who I was and what I did, but what I continue to do, even though I'm in the twilight of my age. Because you got to look at what's the death table that most people have. Most people are going to die somewhere in their 70s and 80s. The sad part is, getting my high school annual newsletter is becoming more and more of that obituary column, because more and more people are passing on. But it's reality. I'm on the other side of the mountain. But as you guys have heard me say before, I plan on taking Father Time into overtime. And again, 125.
And that's right. And that's where Dan shines, in the overtime, in the grind. That's when Mr. Severn has been killing it and continue to kill it. And hopefully I can hold up long enough to see your 125. I might fall short along the way, but I'm going to keep trying. Mr. Severn, once again, thank you from the bottom of my heart, from the millions and millions, and I'm literally meaning millions of fans that adore you, that can't be here right now.
I was waiting for you to go over to the rest of the rock type of thing. They're going to go millions and millions.
I just get a sample. I don't want to steal his stuff. There was homaging. But yes, thank you so much, Beast. You know, if I'm gonna close out the show doing anything, I'm gonna do the just like you, man. That's
Yeah.
that's
I could get that same expression if I simply just stub my toe.
and still, sir,
On
and
that,
still
on
the
that note,
Beast.
dear gentlemen, have a fantastic day. And remember, set your goals and work hard to achieve those goals, because wherever you'll end up will be in a better place than where you are at today.